Well, thank you so much for still staying with us. Now, government recently announced that the country is expected to have sufficient rainfall in the 2024-2025 farming season, with most parts of the country expected to have normal to above normal rainfall. Minister of Green Economy and Environment, Honorable Mposha, said the rain forecast for this year's farming season, as compiled by the Meteorological Department, indicates an improved rainfall pattern from last year, with flash floods expected in flood-prone areas. He joins us tonight to discuss the rainfall pattern for this season, but also look at issues around his constituency and how Munali really, is doing, especially as we head to the next election in just a couple of months to go, a year and a month to go. Honorable Mposha, always a pleasure to have you on Diamond Live.
Thank you, Andrew and Chester, for having me. Good evening to our viewers.
I was listening to the radio just 4 days ago, and they were talking about CDF and how impactful CDF is. Some caller called in and complained bitterly about how the Mtendere ground, how the Kaunda Square ground have not yet been renovated, when there were plans already, to have it, renovated. I'd like to begin off, from the Honorable Mposha. What is happening in your constituency when it comes to delivery of these services?
All right. Thank you, Andrew. It's good that on a platform like this, I have a privilege to discuss both my constituency and the ministerial work.
Yes.
When you're in Parliament, you can only speak as a minister, so I can't be there and say the people of Munali in Parliament now in this jacket. So I'm happy that you've given me this platform. So first of all, Andrew, I totally agree with you. Sometimes it's unfortunate that people just look for results. You see, we must develop a culture where people must embrace the process. You see, since independence, these facilities we are talking about have been bare and, in a state of dilapidation since the formation of those schools or establishment of those schools.
Yeah.
I grew up in Kaunda Square myself. I lived in Mtendere and D compound, and the grounds have been like that. So when I took over in 2021, I said, as a true son of the soil who has seen this dilapidation for a long time, I promised in the campaigns that working with President Hakainde Hichilema, we want to ensure that people must see real development. One of the things that I told them, I said, there's potential in Munali constituency in the various sports disciplines. When you look at a number of football players we've produced came from there. People came from Kaunda Square to go and play, professional football. Players like maybe Nimgaiwa, Fuayo Tembo, even the girls now, Barbara, they came from our constituents, and they were playing in those, extremely dilapidated grounds. And we feel that rehabilitating those facilities will really help, will go a long way in, tapping the talent that lies in that community, and will motivate a lot of young people to be on those football grounds and improve their, playing skills, but also take them away from the bad vices, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. So we did promise in 2021 that we are going to work on the football grounds. So first of all, we said that gradually we are going to work on Kaunda Square, then move gradually to Mahatma Gandhi. So these are the football facilities that we had identified. From Mahatma Gandhi, the plan is to go to Kalikiliki and work on that football ground, and then go to Mkolo ground in Kamanga. So these four are the ones that my team did identify, and they started, set up a roadmap on how we're going to do it. Now, why I'm saying that, these lamentations about they promised and they have not done, and I'm talking about the process here.
Yeah.
These are big works that we have to do, and they can't just be done suddenly.
If I heard correctly, they were saying that projects were even approved.
Yes, now I'm coming to that. So again, I want to appeal to the people to become and try to trust the process. So We did our part. In 2022, we said among the projects we needed to do are these, okay? So we allocated a bit of money. First, when you are working on these, the council comes up with the projected estimates in terms of what they think. These are engineers, in terms of what they think it will cost us to do the work. So that was done. Then when we took it to tender, we said we needed to, we are using ZNS on most of the projects in Munali. And when we gave ZNS and they came back, the procurement process, when I say we are talking about the procurement process, which is done by Lusaka City Council. The amounts that ZNS was asking for, we were beaten in terms of the amounts. What the engineers at the council estimated was far lower than what they requested for. Now, these works include resurfacing, leveling the playing field, resurfacing it, put laterite to make sure that the level is raised. What we don't want currently, when it rains, the water gets stagnant on the playing surfaces. The pool of water collects. So what we want is to raise the level so that no matter how it rains, the water should not find itself forming pools of water on the playing surfaces. So we have to raise the ground. So obviously we have to dump laterite. Afterwards we have to plant the grass. We have to drill the boreholes around there so that during dry season we should be able to water. We have to secure the facilities by putting the perimeter wall or the wall fence. We have to put the washrooms there. So these will be modern facilities. So when we pushed in the tender to ZNS, the bidding amount was higher. So we had to go back. When a situation like that happens, the document has to be sent back for the committee again to make a decision. Remember that these decisions have to be made by the Constituency Development Fund Committee. So it came back and we said, how do we do it? We said, okay, let's do it in stages. So that the first stage should be working on the playing surface. Then the following year we allocate more money until we do what? We finish off. So that decision was made, and again we had to go through the processes now of contracting. Where we are, we have now made a decision at the CDF committee. We've sent it for approval. The approval has been done for the second time. And we have sent the contract to the Attorney General, which he has cleared, and the contract has been signed. Monies have been paid to the contractor. As we speak, the site for the Kaunda Square football ground has been handed over to the contractor. Now, again, I want to appeal that we are the ones who promised. We are the ones who said we want to do this for the community. And then people want to put you at gunpoint and say, oh, they promised, they didn't do this. Wait, trust the process, because to clear these things you go through. Cheswa, if it was me just making a decision and releasing the money, signing, I would want to do it within 1-2 days. Unfortunately, this is government money. It has to go through so many processes. If the amount, as the case was higher, it had to come back, a fresh decision had to be made.
How much influence do you have as a member of parliament when it comes to decisions over CDF? I had the material lawmaker on Costa just yesterday Sunday, and just telling me that an MP is very distant from decision making when it comes to CDF. Decisions are being made by the council, and he even made fun of it that most of these councils are councilpreneurs and they have their own people that they give contracts to. The same people that they used to give contracts to another PF are the same people that are giving contracts to.
Now, listen. It just depends the context in which he was putting it. First of all, as Member of Parliament, I'm the one the people entrusted to oversee the development of that constituency. So when these processes are going on, I must always find time to make sure that I have a word in terms of what I want to be done. Of course, in consultation with WDCs, the councillors, and my fellow members. But the way the structure is made is that as Member of Parliament, you are just a member of the CDF. You're not the one who chairs the meetings. Even me, in my position as a minister, I sit there. I was in a long meeting, CDF meeting today, almost practically half the day, being chaired by my chairman of the CDF. Now, in terms of who procures, it's the same thing like in ministries. You can be a minister. I'm not the one who procures in the ministry. Okay? Similarly, in the CDF, it's not the member of parliament who is supposed to procure. So you make a decision and say, these are the projects that we need to do. The procurement now has to be done by the institution. In this case, it's the councils. In our case, it's Lusaka City Council. Now, that is not to say that the powers have been taken away from you. It's just a process of ensuring checks and balances. You can't be the one making a decision and going to the market to go and procure. So it's not the job of a member of parliament to procure. And this is why I laugh all the time when, people go on social media and say, oh, CDF, we don't see it. Hey, these members of parliament are this, that, that. The member of parliament does not even touch that money.
Just because perhaps the way you've portrayed, you members of parliament, the way you've portrayed how CDF works, because we've got other members of parliament that boss before the floor of the house that have done this with my CDF, I've done this with my CDF.
No, of course,
so in the context, others are working, others are not working.
In the context that you are the driver of development, you are the overseer of development in the constituency. And yes, all of us would go like now, I'm telling you that we've made a decision and the procurement has been done, the contractor is on the ground, the works have started in Kaunda Square in terms of mobilization. We are handing over the site for Mahatma Gandhi sometime next week, all things being equal. So the works will also be happening almost at the same time with at Mahatma Gandhi in Mtendere and the Kaunda Square football grounds.
So all the four works will begin
No,
at the
two.
same time?
So remember I said that we'll be doing it gradually. So the two, Kaunda Square and Mtendere, will be done at the same time. Then we're going to move to Kalikiliki and Mkolo. Hopefully we can also do those two at the same time.
So for Kalikiliki and Mkolo, have those also been approved, just like Kaunda Square?
No, they are on the list of what we're going to submit, because remember that you only submit and get the approval once the monies for the particular area have been allocated. Now, Munali is a big constituency, very, very big and with high demands. So even with the enhanced CDF, the increased CDF, you still have challenges to fit in a number of projects in the community projects component. So you find that you want to do so many things. By the time, even when we're at a stage when we're doing the estimates, we find that we have overshot. Okay? So that is the challenge that we normally have. Even on the roads, we had submitted to ZNS, they came back with a bidding figure, and we found that some of the roads were overshot in terms of their costings. We had to sit back.
Where have you gone the route of ZNS? Because for me, what I'm getting, Honorable Minister, is the engineers have advised you and that this is the estimation of how much this project is going to cost. You go to the contractor that will charge you that amount. Why do you go to ZNS, which is much more expensive?
No. To the contrary, ZNS is first of all cheaper. If we went to any other contractor, it would have been way higher. This I must tell you. So far, ZNS has proven to be cheaper. And I want to tell you, I'm also doing it. For there, I've put my foot down. I've told them we'll have to use ZNS because no one will go behind to get the what. Because the history that we found is that when we are using some of these contractors that were there in the past, people set up BOQs, higher BOQs, and they will have an inbuilt mechanism. They know who they are going to give this contract, and behind your back, government money is being shared. And this is why projects were becoming extremely expensive.
So this can happen under ZNS?
How? The ZNS is a government institution.
Yeah, but also
so the money is going into a government institution.
My point there is that then you are not empowering the locals.
No. We are empowering the locals because on the road works, we've used ZNS because they have sufficient equipment, but also for the reasons that I've said. On the football grounds, we've done that because these are big works that have to be done. And we feel that ZNS already has the capacity to do that. But for the other constructions that are happening in the constituency, like the construction of classroom blocks, we've given the local contractors.
I was about to come to that, Honourable Minister.
Yeah, so we had a police post built in Kamanga, which has been completed. We had a 1-by-3 classroom block, which has been built in Chainama, which is a special school. We have one in Chainda under Charleston Secondary School. All those were done by the local contractors.
And I was about to come to that. Which projects would you point to, in Munali that you've managed to, to oversee and, completed, under your tenure as Member of Parliament?
Okay, good. So basically the past 3 years, we've done a number of roadworks in places where the roads were extremely dilapidated. You go to Kamanga, we had to start with one road called the Kamanga Irish Road going to Hybrid Pottery. Later we came in and worked on a road called the Lubwa Road, which comes from ZNS, connecting Chamba Valley all the way up to the Kalimba Farm Road, which is in Charleston. Okay, and when you ask the farmers there and the people that settled there will tell you that since independence they were just using their own money to put monies together and cause ZNS to grade for them. For the first time, they are seeing government coming in through CDF to do such a good road.
Is it hard?
Most of the people that are coming from Charleston now, going to Chamba Valley, they don't have to come through Great East Road. And each time I meet people in the barber shop and elsewhere, they just tell me, Minister, you know what you've done with those roads? It's easier now for us to connect from one point of Munali to the other. So then we went to Charleston Big Market. We worked on a number of roads around the market. For many years, that market, when it starts raining, pools of water would build up around the market and the roads that connect into the market. All those roads have been worked on. We've worked on some of the roads connecting Charleston, small market going through Nkoloma Stadium into Kamanga. We've gone into Mtendere. Mtendere, we worked on roads like Chitukuko, connecting Mtendere to Kalikiliki. This was one of the roads that had been completely damaged over the years.
And we must be very clear, Honourable Minister, that you're just grading these roads.
No, we're not just grading. No, we're not just grading. Ask the people that have driven on these roads in Munali. In fact, even my colleagues, the parliamentarians, even my friends, ministers, when they drive through some of these roads, they're saying, Munali is the only constituency which is doing this type of roads. We are not just grading.
What are you doing?
We are grading, do the proper road formation by dumping laterite, and then the end of it, the top layer, we dress the top layer with stones. So we are putting crusher on there and compacting. That ensures a bit more durability, and these are not just ordinary, feeder roads where you just grade and then leave them like that. So all the roads that we've done thus far, we've put stones and compacted them.
Concluding the issue around CDF, I know Andrew wanted to come in there, but there's a lot of issues that Munali, like you say, is a very big constituency.
Yes.
There's still issues around water, for example, and there's a lot of complaints that have come around issues around water. I want to understand what the picture is and what you've been able to manage to do in issues around water, for example, in Kaunda Square and surrounding areas. What is the picture like? Is this still a big problem?
Look, the population of Munali has been growing, over the years. When I was in Kaunda Square in primary school and lived in Kaunda Square was just Kaunda Square Stage 1 and Stage 2 there. But over the years, all the areas surrounding Kaunda Square have been built. And that means that the infrastructure, in terms of water infrastructure, water supply infrastructure, must be expanded to correspond to the population growth. And that is inevitable. Now, in terms of what have we done, during the time that I've been there, Mtendere, we had certain sections that had problems with water. We put in money, not CDF. This was now the ministry. We pushed in a project under Mtendere there to put up an extra reservoir and also the network to boost up the supply in PHI and the other parts of Mtendere. Kamanga compound, there was an extension program for water supply to go towards Kamanga, particularly Overspill, which is a relatively newer residential area in comparison to the past years. Now, we have settlements such as Mtendere East. Now, here's the history of Mtendere East. Those used to be farms, and people moved in and put up all sorts of structures. It started as a revolution of cadres just giving away people's farms and, in an unplanned manner, where you don't think of where the school is going to be, and it was just residential. And, well, people have settled. Now, we had to again push in. After we commissioned the Kafue bulk project, we had to push in some extensions into Mtendere East to support the water supply. Before the drought situation, which has affected the energy, situation in the country, energy supply situation in the country, Mtendere East, in terms of water, they had enough water that was actually being used in certain points very carelessly, and it would just flood. But because of the energy situation now, once you are load shedded, most of the points or the stations, the pump stations, are not able to pump, and because of that, we have this challenge. Now, you remember that when I was Minister of Water, just when we were hit by this drought, we did a study, we did our projections, and I did announce that as we go towards the dry season, September, October, most of the boreholes were going to fail, and we must prepare for a slightly severe crisis. And we are here now. Most of the boreholes are fading. Remember that most of the domestic boreholes, we only drill up to 50-55 meters. Most of the people have drilled up to 50-55 meters. So what has happened is that the water table has gone so low because of the drought, and their pumps have been exposed. They're just sucking air. That is a challenge that we have currently, coupled with the fact that Lusaka Water is not able, for the case of Lusaka, is not able to pump sufficiently because of load management. So here we have a crisis, and we are hoping that we can assist using CDF in certain areas to drill more commercial boreholes, not domestic boreholes, commercial boreholes that should go deeper and supply, water to certain points. And this is what we were discussing this afternoon in the CDF, and we are hoping that we've identified the communities where they're really water stressed, where we can give them some boreholes which will be operated on solar. So that we can have consistent supply of water.
Speaking about water, the Zambian people were very excited just a few weeks ago when you addressed them, Honorable Mposha, to tell them that they'll have sufficient rainfall in this, in this season. Give us more details, around your prediction as the ministry, but also working together with the meteorological department in terms of our weather forecast.
Good. Remind me about the excitement. I want to talk about the excitement. We need to manage the excitement because, first of all, climate change is here to stay. The damage which has resulted into where we are now in terms of climate change has happened over the years. It will not be restored within 1 year or 2 years. So climate change is here for some time. So we need to manage the excitement. The projection for 2024-2025 rainfall season is giving us a positive picture that most parts of the country will have normal to above normal rainfall. What this means is that we expect to have good supply of rains or of water through rain. Now, we did also announce that the onset of the rain season in certain parts of the country might actually be earlier. So when you look at western parts of Zambia, Western Province, Northwestern, and the northern parts of Luapula. We expect that we should have serious rains around October. Okay? Whereas most parts of the country, we expect to have rains around November. So that is the projection that we have. But there are certain parts of the country, the northeastern parts of the country, and certain districts such as Luangwa, Sinazongwe, Gwembe, those are likely to delay and only receive some rains around December, deeper into December. Okay, so that is the projection that we have, that we are going to have normal, above normal rainfall in most parts of the country. And because of that projection, we have said our people must also be alert in areas where these areas are prone to floods, because we are likely to have flash floods.
Likely to have flash floods. And
Yes. But how accurate is this information, Minister?
Very, very, very accurate. I was actually...
the ministry was also had embarked on smart weather stations. Maybe you can also update the country on that. How accurate is this data? Because there's been complaints around inaccurate data that also makes it very difficult for farmers and people to plan and so on.
I'm privileged to sit in a cabinet committee responsible for disaster, management, which is chaired by Her Honor the Vice President. And talking about accuracy, the Meteorological Department every year will prepare a report, and the minister announces, like I did, and then we go and also brief a committee of cabinet, and we also brief cabinet. I remember that last year, the Meteorological Department briefed us that we are going to have normal rains around December, going into January, but about mid-January, we are going to have some dry spell. Now, what they were also very specific on, I remember very well, was that they did not have a clear picture in terms of how long that dry spell was going to take.
I was about to come to that, because it seemed like the dry spell, you as a new government, hit you by surprise, because even the president said he had advised farmers to go and to go back to the land, and they tilted the land, but there was a dry spell. It seemed like we didn't have enough information.
No, we were told we're going to have rains around December, January, and that there was going to be a break. But the survey did not give the indication in terms of how long. So the anticipation was that around early February we might have the rains again. And that is where the crisis came in, because from mid-January, and true to what was said, we went into a dry spell. Unfortunately, it was a prolonged dry spell, which just damaged whatever had been planted. Now, we must also emphasize here that this analysis, this forecast, is a projection of what is being shown to us. But things can change along the way. So that is not to say that we are not being accurate. Our experts are not being accurate. They are accurate in terms of what is showing now, in terms of what is going to happen in the rainfall season. But climate change, being what it is, climate can change. The conditions, the climatic conditions can change suddenly.
And these missionaries are unable to tell?
No, they can tell to an extent of what is going to happen, but if the movements suddenly change, they can, now you have the regular intervals of checking, but in terms of what we have checked now, both at a regional level, SADC region, and the in-country, the results are what we have given out. But now we are closely monitoring. And this is why we have all these weather, rain stations to tell us in terms of what is going to happen the next 24 hours, what will happen the next 1 week, what will happen the next 1 month. So if along the way, as we continue monitoring, there are changes, again we'll be able to alert the country that contrary to what we had projected, this is what has happened in the movement.
How much investments have you made, Honourable Minister?
Very good, very good. So
to predict the rainfall pattern.
Yes. So marrying it with how accurate is this, the rain monitoring stations, I want to tell you that we've invested in modern rain monitoring stations in the districts. In the past, we had not built capacity to monitor even at a district level. But I want to say that we've been assisted by the World Bank, and we are rolling out, right now I think we've done close to about 100 modern monitoring stations in the districts. And these are modern facilities that are able to give us accurate and timely data with which we have to operate. So in terms of investment, yes, we've gone far to invest now at a point where we've gone over 100 districts, equipping them with these monitoring stations, and our desire is to ensure that all the 116 districts are covered. This is very important because this information will obviously help the farmers to plan in terms of when to plant, if they have correct information, what to plant, what variety to plant, but also like now we are projecting that in flood-prone areas there will be flash floods, early warning systems kick in, and the people begin to be warned. The systems of government begin to prepare for such eventualities.
And in terms of preparedness, I was going to ask, I mean, you are in touch with DMMU, obviously.
Yes.
How much has gone into just preparing for whatever situation that may come? How confident are you that we are ready to deal with whatever disasters that may come this season?
Very, very. We are confident that we'll be able to deal with all these eventualities. Unfortunately, as at now, we cannot tell the magnitude, but I want to say that the DMMU is on standby and ready to assist our people in case of flood occurrences. And like you've said, yes, we are not only working with DMMU, we are working with various government departments, including Ministry of Agriculture. So we've given out this information. Immediately I made that announcement, our officers are working in the background with various stakeholders to ensure that the Ministry of Agriculture gets this information, gives it to the farmers in terms of what must be packaged, what must be planted, and what they must look out. Then we
But you agree that in the last farming season you misled the farmers with the president?
No, we did not.
You told them to go plant and they planted.
And we, like I said, the projection was that we are going to have good rains around December up to January. When do we plant? We plant around November and December, isn't it? Then the indication was that, yes, we are going to have a dry spell mid-January. And we were very clear. The meteorological department were very clear. Maybe, I don't know at what point that was missed, but I remember myself in several meetings that they made it very clear there will be a dry spell, and they showed us the maps around these areas will have a dry spell. What we are not sure is how long the dry spell is going to take. Now, when it comes to rains, my brother, you can do the projection. Ours is to analyze and project. But in between the movements, okay, the climatic conditions can change, and it will not help us to begin to blame the meteorological department or who advised. I think they can only do so much, but as and when the changes happen, before we could also, like I've said, we continue periodically in the short time. We are able to project and say, contrary to what we had said, this is what now we are seeing.
But is that the picture that you give to the farmers?
Yes, last year that was said, that we're going to have a dry spell. Now, I talked about excitement, that people are excited. Yes, we've gone through this very difficult situation, extremely difficult situation in the 2023-2024 rainfall season, and the excitement is expected. But I want to say this, that, like I said earlier, climate change is here for some time. Until all the measures that we're putting in place to push back the effects of climate change, until we achieve that. For now, we are still, climate change is here for a little while, for some time. And what we need to do is to continue building the resilience. We must not be excited yet. I think what is important is, yes, we're going to have sufficient rains. The point is, when it comes to energy, people are saying, okay, fine, we're going to have enough rains, meaning the problem we're going through in terms of load shedding, load management is over. No, that's not true, because the experts have told us that for us to restore the water levels around Kariba, Kafue Gorge, we need about 4 to 5 years of normal rainfall. Now, that is not being guaranteed that we're going to have the next 5 years normal rainfall. We might have reduced rains. The second picture is that, remember I told you that we've done 2 projections. One projection is in country. Another projection is regional, the SADC region. And the SADC region projection is showing us that around Angola, the Angola area, where we receive most of the rains into Western Province, and through Western Province into the Zambezi, then Kariba, from December, okay? December, January, February, which will be the peak of, which is the peak of the rain season. In Angola, the projection is showing that we are going to receive less rains. So what that means is that the inflows into Kariba through Zambezi is reduced, is expected to be reduced. So what we need to do now is to continue following the interventions that government has put in place.
So just maybe make this clear. So this rainfall season will have no effect in terms of reducing the number of hours of load shedding? No, I didn't say that. Look, we receive water from different tributaries into the Zambezi and through the Zambezi into the Kariba. Then Kafue into Kafue Gorge. But note that most of the water which goes into the Kariba comes from Angola into Western Province. And this is where you have Western Province, the plains gets flooded. Once they get flooded, they begin to feed into the Zambezi. But the projection we are having now, the regional projection, is that during the 3 months of December, January, February, there will be a serious reduction in the amount of rains Angola will receive. And in effect, the rainfall that we're going to receive will mean nothing.
No, to the contrary. No. The rainfall that we're going to receive will contribute in filling up some of the tributaries that will end up into the Zambezi. But assuming Angola was also going to receive a lot of rains during the peak, it was really going to assist us a lot. The combination of what we're going to collect in country and what will come across the transboundary rivers would have actually given.
My question still remains, Honourable Minister, that if all things are held constant and your projections are accurate, we don't receive enough, enough rainfall from Angola that goes into, all these rivers that you've mentioned. What would be the effect of this rainfall that we're going to receive on our energy problem?
Look, it will be slightly different from the current situation. We'll still have some amounts of water, maybe good amounts of water, going into the Zambezi and ultimately into Kariba. But if Angola had received more, the way we have projected in country, we are going to have actually more water going into the Kariba.
To the Kariba.
So here is the issue of the amounts of water which will go into the Kariba. Will not be as much as it was going to be if Angola was going to receive a lot of rains.
I don't know if the minister gets my question, Chair. So, but I'm agreeing with you, Honourable Minister, that so what happens now in terms of the dependence on the Kariba for power generation, assuming that what your projections are correct, if we have the rains in our country, but not enough rains, you know, in Angola, are we going to see a reduction or not?
This is exactly what I was saying. You remember when I said let's manage the excitement?
Yes, you explained very well of what will happen.
Yes, so the solution now is, you see, we must continue reducing our dependence on hydropower, because there's still uncertainty in terms of when we are going to restore the water levels, because it cannot be done through one season, a single season. Now, when we talk about 5 years of normal and above normal rainfall to restore the levels there, there is no assurance that the next 5 years we're going to have normal above normal rainfall because of the changes that might happen. So that is why I was saying, let us continue following what the government is advising us in terms of the solar revolution. Let us see those who can manage. And again, this is the debate that comes in. No, solar is very expensive. Not everyone can manage. We're not saying everybody should have. What we're saying is that those that can manage, because all of us, including me here, for many years, we've depended on hydropower. We've depended on...
You're trying to be diplomatic here, Honourable Minister. I know you're a diplomat, but you're very much trying to be diplomatic.
Well, the short answer
are you telling the Zambians tonight that
the load shedding is still with us for quite...
Is that the blunt answer you're giving the Zambian people tonight, that this rainfall season will mean nothing in terms of our energy crisis?
No. I will not say that. What if it rains so much that we fill up the Caribbean?
No, with your projections. I'm talking about your data.
The in-country will still give us some good amounts to go...
Which will mean nothing
to go around.
In terms of the energy crisis.
Not completely nothing. Not completely nothing, as in comparison to the crisis we have. In comparison to the amounts of water we received in 2023-2024 season, definitely not. This will create a bit of an improvement. But really not to restore the water levels to the levels that we desire, you and me.
That will not happen.
That's why I'm saying that, can we reduce the dependence on hydropower? Those that can manage, for example, to transition to cooking using gas, LPG, those that can manage to transition using solar most of the hours, okay, they will leave a bit of power which can be used by those that cannot manage to be on solar, and also the industries that should help us to create jobs. That is basically what I'm saying. But if we relax and say the projection indicates that we'll have enough rains and we anticipate that the load shedding is going to end, then again we are misleading ourselves, because we're going to relax. We don't go into the mitigative measures that government is prescribing and encouraging us to go to. Then we go back to zero, because all of us then will be depending on the Kariba, and will put more pressure, and before you know it, we go back into the long hours of load.
How much does your government, Honourable Minister, care about the issues around climate change? Well, I mean, your ministry receives less than 1%, of the national budget, yet this is one of the critical ministries, one of the biggest ministries, actually, that the country must be, considering. What is the long-term, plan in terms of this government over, issues around climate change?
Look, in terms of caring and the focus around issues to do with climate change, I want to tell you that, first of all, the president has always been mindful that the whole world now is focusing on dealing with the issues of climate change. And hence the creation of this ministry. You realize that we didn't have this ministry as a standalone ministry to deal with these issues, green economy, climate change issues. And when we came into office, this was one of the new ministries, the only ministry that was added to the other ministries that were there. Now, that just commitment, that action, that kind of focus by President Hakainde Hichilema goes to speak to the fact that he's alive even before this drought, because people are talking about climate change now as a result of this drought, but these problems have been there for some time. And from the day one, he went in and said, I want a ministry, a standalone ministry, which will start dealing with these issues. About 3-4 days ago, I was opening a workshop, a regional workshop, and all the people who came from the SADC region and from afar, they said, you know what, can we begin to lobby? Zambia must begin to lobby. We want all the countries to start with the SADC region to have a standalone ministry to deal with green economy and climate change issues. And I want to say that this government cares about issues of climate change, but in terms of budget, look, we can only deal with what is available. All these ministries that you see, given a chance, they would want so much money to deal with so many problems that they are budgeting for.
But less than 1% for this big ministry, Honorable Minister?
No, but that is what is going to come from the government. But I want to tell you that because of how the president has sold this country, has projected this country to the outside world, I want to tell you that we are receiving a lot of support as a ministry. So don't just look at what is being provided in the budget.
But it shows how serious we are as a government, you know, by looking at what government, you know, is investing, you know, in this ministry.
No, but also we have provided room for support. We are receiving a lot of support from the cooperating partners, and I want to tell you that if there's a ministry among the ministries that is interfacing with the international community there in terms of support, in terms of focus, is the Ministry of Green Economy, one of them, very, very key. So what we are seeing in terms of the budgetary allocation does not speak to the lack of seriousness, but on the other hand, we've already provided, because we know the commitments that the cooperating partners are making in terms of supporting this ministry, which is sufficient for us to move. But we would want to have so much. Unfortunately, the basket can only cater for what is available.
Minister, let's pick a caller who would like to equally give one or two people to just share their views. This evening we're hosting Honourable Mike Mposha, is Minister in charge of Green Economy and Environment. Good evening, Stephen. Welcome to Diamond Live.
Thank you, and good evening, our Minister and my constituency MP.
Thank you, Stephen. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Minister?
Very well, thank you.
Yes, one of the residents in Munali constituency, but Zambia being what it is, I'm currently working in Munali district.
Okay.
So, first of all, I'm calling to congratulate you, I think, in terms of the way you're articulating the development in Munali constituency. That's so good, and good to hear some of the projects that you've done. However, I have a concern, particularly when you're talking about the area around Kaikiliki, the area around New Mtendere East, in terms of that area, like you area elaborated, it started as an illegal settlement, mainly I think by the MMD cadres that gave themselves land in that area. And therefore, there was no proper planning in terms of other social amenities that a community would need. And in this case, I want to bring maybe a secondary school, because the pupils around that area, they have to travel longer distances, either to go into Kablonga or other areas to access secondary school. So now I was looking at the place where there is this old transmitter. I'm sure you know that place,
yes,
Honorable Minister.
Yes, I do.
Where there's that old transmitter, that land, I feel it's big enough to accommodate some development of some sort. And in this particular, I'm looking at maybe a secondary school to be built in that area. And thirdly, I saw, I think, one person that has been allocated land in that area doing something, some sort of industry that I think the community is not very pleased with. Would you kindly consider, as you are looking at Constituency Development Fund, to turn that place either into a secondary school? Otherwise, it's been lying idle for some time before we see cadres or before we see people allocating land to themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen, for calling.
Minister.
Okay, Stephen, thank you so much for your compliments. I know the area you are talking about, and I want to say that that area is committed. It belongs to one of the wings of government. Unfortunately, we cannot use it for that purpose until maybe that wing of government decides to surrender it. But that place is serving a certain purpose for government. It's a government piece of land, so it can't be used for that purpose. And like he has said, I think he knows that area very well. He has ably explained this is a challenge we have. The people there are telling me we want a secondary school in Kalikiliki or Mtendere East, and then when I ask them and say, where am I going to be? It's one thing for me to go and ask for money from government, Minister of Education, and say I want a school. But where do we build the school? And this is why I talked about the chaotic planning or lack of it. Now they tell me and say, let's build the school in NRDC. Again, NRDC, that is an institution under Ministry of Agriculture. So I want to tell you, Stephen, that we've been running to try and see how best we can run around this. The only alternative now is the discussions we're having with the Minister of Agriculture to see if they could assist that community with a piece of land where we can build a school.
Within NRDC?
Yes, within NRDC, because of the proximity. That community is big. It's grown. It goes up to Ibex. And really, like Stephen has said, my heart bleeds as Member of Parliament. It really, I feel bad. My heart bleeds to see that people have to walk long distances to go to Kablonga and other places when we could easily build a school. But the challenge is where to find the land.
Minister, we've got our last caller. Xavier Mutale is calling us from Kafue. Xavier, you've got a minute before we wrap up. Please go ahead with your question or contribution.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Xavier.
Yes. I wanted to just make a quick inquiry from the minister.
Go ahead.
Yes, Minister, kindly advise on the topic is we're likely to expect sufficient rainfall, but what is the government policy in relation to reduce load shedding in the event that we don't have enough rainfall, especially where the head of state said that it's not about having rainfall, but it's about poor leadership. So what is the government policy to address this vicious load shedding, which is affecting a lot of businesses? Because we find that the government might say this, again, what is on the ground is different. So what is your position as government where you want to address this load shedding so that the lives of people can be better? So your ultimate response will be highly appreciated, Minister.
Thank you so much, Xavier. As a writer to that question, Honourable Minister, I've been listening to a lot of radio and callers call in the morning and suggest that why don't these MPs channel that money to addressing the issues of load shedding? Why don't you empower people with these the rooftop panels? Why don't you, for example, the entire money you take it into Munali in addressing the issue of load shedding? As this is the biggest challenge at the moment, as you answer Xavier's question.
Yeah. So our long-term plan is what I've explained, that the issues of climate change, Cheswa and Andrew, we started being cautioned way back. I remember in 2005 attending a summit, World Climate Change Summit in Montreal in Canada. This was in 2005, where we were warned and said, Africa in the next 15-20 years, we are going to experience serious effects of climate change, which will result in floods, in extreme weather patterns, floods, sometimes droughts, and all these things were being explained that this is a time to shift. This was about 20 years or so ago, where they said, can Africa change and begin to embrace renewable sources of energy by pushing a revolution around the solar and water? We didn't do that. under President Rupiah Banda, you saw there was a program that came up where ZESCO was installing solar geysers on the rooftops. Later, after that, immediate RB left, that project was abandoned. Now, this is what I'm saying in terms of what his question, very good question by Mtale, to say, what should we do in the long term? What we should do is what I was saying, that let's manage our excitement. Even if it rains very well the next 2 years, don't drop the guard. Those that can manage, let's equip our roofs with the solar so that we reduce the dependence on hydro. But if we continue with this mentality where we're not ready to face a crisis, we want to continue, because what I see, most of the cry, like you've said on radio, is for people to find who to blame for what is happening, other than saying we have a crisis. Can we listen to the solutions? Because even in a home, when you've lost a job, you have a crisis. You can't continue mourning about who fired you, who did what. You need to look for solutions. It's good for people to look up to government for solutions. Yes, we are there providing solutions. And we are saying, instead of crying and saying, there's this, hey, look, I have clothes which are not ironed, all that will not help us. The issue now is to say, collectively as a country, for many years we've depended on hydropower to a point where 86% and more of the people depend on hydropower. Can we move small things where we can light up our home using solar? Let's do that. Now, I say
the Zambian people find it very hard to forgive you, Honorable Minister.
Can I go on just before you come?
Your government told the Zambian people that the reason for why we had load shedding under the PF was because of bad leadership.
Exactly.
And you gave an example of Dubai, where it doesn't rain, yet they have power 24/7.
Very good. It's about leadership. It's about leadership. The point I'm making is that these issues, these interventions that this government, through the President Hakainde Hichilema, is prescribing, these things should have started way back, should have started 15 years ago. These things should have started 20 years ago. I've given an example. President Rupiah Banda, may he so rest in peace, his government took the recommendations that were coming, that we are going towards a point where we are going to face serious adverse effects of climate change. They started putting solar geysers as one intervention.
Are you planning to channel CDF towards the energy crisis?
Yes, in certain institutions we are going to do that, but as we wrap up, I see you're about to cut me. Yeah. The issue here is that let's reduce our dependence on hydropower. The population has grown, but also the adverse effects of climate change are here. So if we continue with this mentality where we still want to wait and say hydropower, it will never be sufficient. But as we conclude, I want to join you and many others in conveying my condolences to the family of the former Minister of Defense, the late George Mpombo, who saved this country and also who was a darling of the people of Copper Belt. We've lost a gallant son of Zambia, and I convey my condolences, my sincere condolences to the family and the country as a whole on this great loss.
Minister, thank you so much for making time to be with us on Diamond Live tonight.
Thank you for having me.
On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you so much for watching. Our guest has been Honorable Mposha, Minister responsible for green economy and environment. Thanks again for watching.
We'll see you on Friday. Good night.